Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Fargo, the new virtual assistant from Wells Fargo, makes banking faster and easier. Like this.
Fargo, what's my checking account routing number?
And this.
Fargo, turn off my debit card.
And this.
Fargo, what did I spend on groceries last month?
And that's just the beginning. Do you, Fargo? You can. In the Wells Fargo mobile app. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/getfargo.
Terms and conditions apply. Your mobile carrier's availability and message and data rates may apply. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
So our podcast is called Right and Wrong.
Are these your notes?
These
Are these your notes about what we're going to say?
Anything
Nailed
is
it.
the short answer.
So how many novels did you not finish?
Oh my God, so many.
It was perfect. What's she talking about? This is nonsense.
Ooh, a spicy question. I love it.
This is it, guys. The big secret to getting published is you have to write a good book. You heard it here first. Hello, and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. Today, I'm very excited to be collaborating with the Romantic Novelists Association once again in interviewing all of the nominees for their annual Agent of the Year award. And on this episode, I'm joined by literary agent, author, editor, producer, mother, and founder of the Liverpool Literary Agency, the one and only Clare Coombes. Hi, Clare. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to be on here.
I am almost out of breath listing all of the things that you do. But let's start off with congratulations on being nominated as one of the RNA's Agents of the Year.
Yeah, it was obviously I've only been in agenting and in the publishing industry at all for 2 years. So it's just 2 years. So I just was so surprised and obviously really honoured, because looking at the other agents on the list, I was like, wow, to be in very good company. And I looked through and I thought, actually, I am representing, there's 8 books, 8 romance books, romance themes, and 4 romance authors. So I thought, I've always been drawn to romance. I love everything about the genre. It kind of started me reading. So yeah, it's just been a real honour and a bit of a journey to think that when I started looking at, and I'm very honest about this, when I was looking into being an agent, my first step was Googling, what does an agent do? So, because I didn't come from any sort of background where publishing and agenting was talked about. It was never mentioned as a career. It was, I'm nearly 40 now, and it's kind of taken me this long, even though I did English literature at university and I've always read, to think that I could go towards a career in agenting. And it was to do with when I was thinking about it, there was something called the Common People Report that came out. And I don't know if listeners would be aware of that. That was a report that looked at how publishing and agenting needed to be more diverse and regional, and how the barriers for authors were often socio and economic. So there was like a lack of confidence and a lack of networks, and then obviously, money, because I couldn't have afforded to go and do a free internship when I finished uni or anything like that. So, and I think things are changing. And then Harper North launched, and since then Hachette have launched offices around the North and more regional. And I've just seen that gave me the confidence to think, I'm going to give this a go. I've worked in PR and marketing for years. I've edited for authors. I discovered there was, and I kind of knew this from pitching myself out as well, there was no literary agency in Liverpool. So I thought, I'm going to see what I can do. And it's just been an amazing journey, really, when I am just looking at the list of authors and how I have been able to represent one of my favourite genres of romance.
Yeah. I mean, you're totally right, because there's so many factors which have sort of restricted people from getting into publishing. But one of them is just largely that in the UK, at least, publishing essentially historically has always just happened in London, and there wasn't much option to do publishing outside of London.
Yeah, it's as I say, there are more sort of things happening now. But when I first started, I couldn't have done this probably 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. I think that actually being in a pandemic and a lot more people doing things virtually helped me, because I can't afford to go down to London regularly.
Yeah.
Everything happens on Zoom. So meeting authors, meeting commissioning editors, closing the deals is all sorts of happening across Zoom or Teams or DocuSign. And I just thought that technology advancement, and also video technology was obviously there, but it felt like until COVID, nobody really used it. We used it, but it was more like have to meet in person before we close this deal. And I just couldn't. I mean, you've seen my list of things I've got to do. I've got 2 young kids as well.
Yeah.
So it's time and money for me going down to London. So it was very much like, okay, it's becoming more of a virtual world. And I have some great conversations one-on-one with commission editors and form some really strong relationships. And when I first launched and put a press release into the bookseller, a lot of commissioning editors from all different genres, including romance, got in touch and booked meetings with me, so that, and just gave me tips. And it was just fantastic. I thought, I didn't expect this. I'd always kind of thought publishing was a lot more closed off, but actually people are there to support you. And now people are getting in touch with me about becoming agents, regional agents themselves, or steps into agenting. And I do talks in schools. And I really think that that's like been an amazing step. In terms of romance as well, I'm always pushing, and I was doing this when I was doing my master's, I'm always pushing about that sort of perception of romance. Do you know the way that people, I think there was an advert recently, and I can't remember what the company was, and maybe I'm not meant to say, but it was something to do, I'm too young for rocking chairs and romance novels. And everyone was just kind of like, what do you mean by that? Because it is, and sometimes I read things in books where it goes, oh, somebody was just reading a trashy romance book. And I just think, there's so much to romance, and there's so many different like depths to it. And it's actually like such a popular genre that my role as an agent is also to push it as a genre to be taken seriously.
Yeah. And I think that you see that across other genres as well. Because I mean, for the longest time, fantasy used to be just lumped in with children's, because it was not seen as like a serious genre. And then it's taken this sort of movement of people like George R.R. Martin and stuff to really kind of make it very serious and dark for people to take that seriously as a genre. And I think romance gets such a bad rep a lot of the time by people saying it's sort of, oh, it's very kind of lowbrow kind of thing, but it's not at all. Like there's so many complexities and nuances in the range of romance is so enormous,
Yeah, I know. And sometimes it's categorized in different areas. Like when I look at some of the authors I really love, like Jojo Moyes and obviously Marion Keyes, and so even Sophie Kinsella and Jenny Colgan, they can all be sort of branded under general or literary or women's. So I really loved Small Pleasures by Clare Coombes, and that has romance in it, and that was under literary fiction. So I think that a lot of the time there'll be romance in books that are put under other categories as well.
Yeah.
And then people don't realise that they are reading a book that has romantic themes in, because I love a romantic comedy and I love representing them, but sometimes I think people just think, oh, if it's not a romantic comedy, then it's not romance.
Yeah.
And they think it's easy to write as well, when it's, writing comedy is like, my authors are all really skilled, and Danielle Owen-Jones, who writes the romantic comedies, and then she's just fantastic at just making these sorts of laugh out loud romantic comedies, and it's so skilled. And I definitely couldn't do it. And then we have Rachel Bowler, who's just launched Honeymoon for One, which is like a gorgeous LGBTQ plus romance, and that has some hilarious moments in it as well. And I just think it's really hard to get your romance and your comedy together. So it's something that really should be stand out and celebrated for its skill.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Weaving any kind of genres together is always a very, very tricky thing. I think just writing a genre by itself is very tricky to do, because you have to know the market to the point where you need to be ticking the boxes that people looking for that genre want, but at the same time, you need to be subverting it enough that they're not reading the same thing over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the part of an agent as well. And either when authors are coming to us and submitting their work, or when we're going then to commissioning editors at publishing houses, it's always about who would read it, because what has it got in it that would attract readers, and then why does it stand out? So it's always that contradiction in terms that is necessary. It's got to have something different, like Beth O'Leary's Flat Share, when it had the the characters that shared the bed, and that was just brilliant and just did something a bit new, but had this sort of romantic comedy tropes in it, so it kind of had that, like, wow, I didn't think that would work as a story, people sharing the same bed, but it was just brilliant. So it's really good to see how these things can sort of stand out and still have those what readers like to see.
Yes,
in
exactly.
Particular genres.
Yeah. Let's redirect this a little bit back onto you, because you quite modestly said that you'd only just started agenting and that you Googled what an agent was, but you do have 2 books out. You have Definitions and We Are Dust. So with those books, did you have an agent for those? Did you traditionally publish those?
No, well, you see, this is what I use as my experience. So the first one was with a small publisher, and I didn't go out I didn't think I even tried to get an agent. Okay. And I feel like I've learned, I just didn't know where to start. I had no idea. It was 8 years ago when I got the deal. And then with We Are of Dust, I published that through my own company, because I tried one agent, but I was very naive. So a writer recommended an agent, but I didn't do my research. I didn't know that they didn't look at young adult themes. I didn't finish the manuscript. I hadn't had beta readers. I hadn't really gone into the depth that you need, and I hadn't really put the submission together properly. And they were really nice, and they just came back and gave me some feedback, but just said, this isn't for us. Right. And then when I did have romance themes in it, because I do love sagas and historical fiction that has romance in, because I've just signed a writer whose deal is going to be announced with Boldwood Books next week, and she's writing World War II fiction with romance, and that's going to be incredible. So I'd done that, sort of I'd learned from that, but I just feel like I can teach people from my mistakes rather than just my success. So my mistakes in trying to go for an agent and how much I didn't know. And then maybe that came from not really seeing agents or publishing. I just read books. I didn't know anything about the industry. I didn't know anyone in the industry. So I feel like, I did get some money to develop We Are of Dust into a TV series, and we got some funding from the Liverpool Film Office. So we did a bit with that in terms of putting the sort of overview together and the episode guide, but it kind of stalled with COVID. So it's still sort of there, but I'd need to go for the next stage of funding. But, I felt like I did learn so much that can help other writers. And I also have spoke to authors who've really supported me, who've had agents as well. So it wasn't just Google and an agent. There was a writer called Caroline Corcoran, if I'm pronouncing the surname right, because I always do this with people's surnames. So she had an agent, and she's a successful psychological thriller writer. And I was talking to her. She was in London, but now she's based in the Wirral, and she just talked me through a little bit about what her agent, what involved having an agent. And then I still had that imposter syndrome. So I was very much, I'll be an agent's agent. I'll find agents for people, and I'll find authors for agents. And she just said to me, Caroline said, just be an agent. And I was like, okay, because it's not really something that you have to set up and pay for your website. You have to pay to be a member of the Association of Authors Agents. I'm trying to get the acronym the right way around, because it's AAA.
Okay.
And then, like I work from home. I've got an office at home. So it was things like that, really. There's not that much that it cost me. So it was okay to sort of think, all right, I can set this up and I don't have to pay rent. I don't have to take too many risks. And I think I want to let people know that as well, that, there are outlying costs that you need, but it's not going to be what you think, and you can spread it out over a year in most cases. So you don't have to dive right in and use up savings. And also that I still have a job alongside this. So part-time I work in communications, and I also do some freelance editing. So again, if people are worried about taking that step into it, you will have time to sort of do some other work as well. And you will need to, because most agents, I think, were saying that it took maybe 5 years for them to feel like they could just do agenting full time. A lot of agents start with different jobs alongside agenting. What we're doing with the Association of Authors Agents at the moment is I'm in a equality, diversity and inclusion group, and we're relaunching the website so that we've got clear guides onto route into agenting, what being an agent involves, and just talking heads about people who've come from different backgrounds and got into agenting. So I think that's going to be really useful for people as well.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So talking about that specifically, you mentioned that it sounds like it's kind of what inspired you to create the agency was largely your own experience of not really knowing what the industry was or how it worked, which is very similar to why I started this podcast. With definitions and We Are of Dust. And then you how did you learn to do the role and figure out all the different steps along the way?
It was learning on the job and using sort of so when the people contacted me and they gave me advice and tips, and then agents like Juliet Pickering were just brilliant at saying, if you need any help, give us a call. And another agent, Sam Copeland, is really good. And there's a few others, but I'm not sure if it's more informal mentoring for everyone. So it's just been like, I just learned as I went. So also I would kind of, commissioning editors were also so lovely as well. So they'd be like, well, this is what this term means. And, this is kind of what we'd like to do with the book. And I got used to sort of making notes on your typical royalty terms and your rights. And then I partnered with a company for translation rights called the Marsh Agency. And Gemma had come from quite a similar background, Gemma McDonough. So I had somebody to look after translation rights. And then I partnered with Mark Simonson from Solar Sun to do our TV rights. And that was very much I felt like those two things were looked after. So I think a lot of new agents do have partners that they work for translation rights and TV film. And we have a massive presence of TV film up in Liverpool, because there's so much filming that goes on all the time, that I am in regular contact with a lot of sort of film TV companies up here. So I can provide that link and then talk to our TV partner Mark as well. So I just feel like to take the workload off and other people's expertise are there to help me. And once you've kind of got it cracked with, I did have experience in PR. And marketing. I was always pitching to national newspapers and online forums and things, and I was always pitching stories. So I used to do a lot of sports science and astrophysics, and I thought, well, if I can do that, and then the complications of astrophysics and science, and learn how to pitch that, then I can put together submission packages for authors, and the elevator pitch and the blurb and how to write a synopsis and those sorts of things, so that I knew how to approach publishers. And also, I've always researched, because working in a university, it was very important to research your stories. So I'm constantly reading the bookseller and trade press and looking at what commission editors like. And I have a spreadsheet where I have everyone's names and where they are and what genres they like to see. So I think if you thoroughly do your research, and that is what can get you forward in an agenting career. Not necessarily the experience, but the experience as you grow, but the research.
Yeah. And I mean, publishing is evolving rapidly with the sort of new age. Things like Book Talk and ebooks are so big now.
Yeah, ebooks are brilliant though, because I feel like digital first imprints do give a lot of debut authors a chance, and mine are all debuts. Yeah. So it feels like publishers will probably take more of a chance now that we have, the ebook streams. And I'm still getting my head around book talk. And I know it's really important for the romance genre as well, because obviously Colleen Hoover has done so well with book talk, and her books are brilliant. But yeah, and a couple of my authors have been trying out book talk. So I will get into that. But social media is a fantastic way to connect with publishers, connect authors together, find out what's going on in different genres, what people are talking about. So I feel like the technology advancements have been great for debut authors.
Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Yeah, social media really gives a platform to literally anyone. So like if you are self-publishing or traditional publishing, you have a platform which you are, with some hard work, going to be able to reach lots of people with.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like Danielle Owen-Jones, who I represent two of her books, who are both with Bookouture, and I feel like she's brilliant at social media, so she connects with a lot of people, and her books have been sort of just storming up the charts, even though they've been out for earlier in the year. They're still sort of doing really well and going up and down bestseller lists, because I think she connects so well on social media. And
that's great. It's such a powerful tool.
It is, and people really connect with her. And then also the publishers can take advantage of things like Kindle and Prime, and there's a lot of combinations that people can use for marketing to engage readers with a new writer.
Yeah, true. I'd love to talk more about the agency itself, and it's not just you, right? You have a team there working with you.
It's kind of me and Laura, because my co-founder Matthew, he does a lot more sort of on the editing side, so he works more with, he's not involved in the agenting. He's more like, well, help me out with some of the editing, and also work with anyone who wants to self-publish or non-fiction things like that, or magazine work. Laura is come in as an associate agent and works in the field of fantasy and sci-fi, and she just is brilliant. She knows those genres so well. And then we have people who we offer experience to, in terms of if they want to read submissions and feedback, and then they can have that on the CV, and I will find them paid work like one-to-ones and editing and things like that. So it's kind of more people who support us. I know from looking at our website, we don't have like staff on payroll or anything. We're not at that level, but we do find work for people and have them as freelancers, and then give them the experience they need, because it's very competitive to get experience in the publishing industry now. Wow. Yeah. And Anna, who looks at children's and YA for us as well. So she's kind of closed for submissions at the moment, but she would normally look at that sort of younger age range, because that's what I've learned as well. You can't take on everything. So I'm trying to give local people experience that they need, and then find them opportunities in publishing, or as we grow, when we're able to take people on. Because at the moment it's very much commission based for me and Laura. So, just being very honest about it, because there's no point telling people that, we're kind of like paying salaries and things when we can't do that yet, because it's unrealistic.
Yeah. Am I right in thinking that the agency as a whole is closed to submissions right now?
Yeah, only till January. Just because there were so many coming in, and we thought, right, every so often we have to take like a break from it and go through the ones that have come in, or it'll be unfair. So I think we've put a notice on to say it's going to open again in January. So we do an auto reply, and it's on there all the time, and this just updates on submissions, where we give people guidance. So because we can't reply to every submission personally, and I know that's a thing that a lot of authors can kind of go, oh, why didn't I get any feedback? But in our also reply, we talk about reasons why it might not be right for us in general terms. And then we point people towards things that they could do. So we say, if we're closed at the moment, then make sure you've engaged enough beta readers. Don't send a first draft. Make sure it's not about expensive writing courses, but what have you done to connect with other writers? Because that really helps. Don't make sure your agent isn't the first person to see that work. And then sort of, if we ever request a full manuscript, even if it's not right for us in the end or we're not right for it, we always give feedback on that. But it would be impossible to give feedback to individually to everyone. So our also reply is very detailed.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So January 2023, you're opening up again.
Yeah, I'm probably just, I haven't set a date yet because I'm aware that after Christmas, you're never quite sure on that first week after Christmas. So it'll probably be towards the end of January. But if anyone's thinking now of submitting, there is still chances to get more beta readers on it. I can't push that enough, really. I think that a lot of writers I know have found their beta readers on social media. Or have joined different writing organisations and found communities. Because I think if you just pass your book to like a friend or family member, you're not really going to get that sort of understanding and critique. Because writing is development, isn't it? You can be a totally different writer. I definitely am now. Although if I ever have a chance to write a book again, because I would love to. But yeah.
Okay, so submissions at the Liverpool Literary Agency, you only accept submissions from writers born or living in the north of England? Yeah,
we have had to close that off because, as I say, there are a lot of people who submit. But if we do things through I Am in Print and Jericho Writers, so if we do one-to-one sessions or talks or workshops with those places, then we'll say to people who attended our specific workshops or one-to-ones that they can then submit, because it wouldn't be fair otherwise.
Yeah.
And I have found a couple of authors through that who, aren't from the north, but will come from the diverse backgrounds that we're trying to represent. So, if they come from working class, writers of colour, disability, LGBTQ+. So, we do keep on trying to get underrepresented writers, but sometimes through those writing organisations, they might come from other places.
Okay, great. And you represent all genres except for non-fiction and children's and YA. But there's a caveat. Was there a caveat on YA? You do some YA?
Yeah, well, you see Laura with the fantasy and sci-fi genre does look at YA that fits into those genres. And then Anna, when she opens again, is kind of looking at the more middle grade. But I found that YA is just like its particular skill and genre. So, and I found that would, obviously Laura's fantastic with the sci-fi and fantasy, but I'm not so much so. So, I love a romance, a crime thriller, historical fiction, literary, contemporary. So I read all of those. And as I always say to writers, if you should be reading in the genre that you're writing. So I feel like I'm reading in the genre that I'm representing.
Yeah. I mean, it's always just, from a marketing point of view, you need to know what's happening in the rest of the market for the thing that you're trying to put out.
And it's nice because part of my relaxing time is to read things, I'm reading submissions and making notes. I have a lot on my phone. So if, people's manuscripts downloaded to my phone and I'm making notes, which I find is a great system because I can just get that done anywhere when the kids are swimming, when they've got activities on, waiting in the schoolyards. I can be reading a manuscript and making notes. So, I just feel like it's, I'll have a little break now and I'll just read, I'll read a book that's out there at the moment, and that's my break.
So. That's nice. That's nice though. So, going a bit deep on the submissions here, I always like to ask agents this because it's interesting and also very useful for people wanting to submit to you or maybe other agents just to kind of learn a thing or two. When the submissions at your agency it's the industry standard cover letter, synopsis, first 3 chapters.
Yeah.
When you open up a submission, what order do you go through each part and what are you looking for within them?
I'll read the query letter first, and I can quite often tell from that whether I want to read on, because I love to see that the writer knows about their genre. So that could be in terms of comparable titles, how they put together an elevator pitch or a blurb. That I also want to see that they have some sort of, like, if they're in a writing group or if they've done a course, or I don't mean expensive courses again, I just mean, like, what have they done to learn to write? How have they honed their craft? Because I think a lot of people outside the writing industry just assume that, it's an inherent talent and you just write, but it's a skill and you have to have that mix of learning and talent. So I like to see what people have done. And I like people to sort of have done a little bit of research into us as well, so that you feel like they haven't just randomly, blanket email. Obviously, we're aware that the blurb and things are going to be copied and pasted, but I'd like to see at the top that they've taken the time to look into our books and why we would be a good fit for them. So I will read, and if I really like the sound of that, then I will read the opening chapters. I'll try to hold off on the synopsis so I can be surprised by the book. But sometimes, for time's sake, I might say, okay, the 3 chapters are great, but can this sustain? And then I'll read the synopsis. But I don't want people to put any spoilers in the query letter in case I take the route of reading the whole thing first. And the reason I do want authors to put together a good synopsis is because if I do need to check if I think it can sustain, if after I've read the full manuscript, we're going to go, I'm going to sign and go out on submission, that synopsis is going to be really important for commissioning editors to take to an acquisitions meeting. Saying this, didn't know what an acquisitions meeting was this time 2 years ago. So, learning curve. So they will be going to sales and marketing and PR and saying, here's this book, here's the elevator pitch, here's the blurb, and here's why it'll work. So I feel like the synopsis is that sort of top level thing for, other people in the company who won't have time to read it, but want to see how if the story's going to work. And it's part of the commissioning editor's pitch just as much as me knowing that I can send something out to someone. And then, once they've read it, if they're excited by it, then they have basically a bullet points of things, important things that happen in the book.
Yeah. Okay. And for writers and authors thinking about submitting or querying now, or waiting for your subs to reopen in January, what advice would you give them in terms of putting their submission package together?
I would say know what's selling. You should be reading your genre anyway, but know what's happening in your genre. So you could go into Waterstones, you can go on Amazon, you can kind of just be like, okay, and comparable titles, as I say, it's like you're just looking at similarities, maybe themes, maybe style, maybe point of view. And it's just good that I can see that you're reading well in your genre, but you've got a recent insight. So I feel like do research your genre, and then make sure you've got a really good blurb that's in your query letter that's a bit like a back of the book blurb. So I say to people, if whatever genre you're writing, go and look at back of the book blurbs in that genre and use them as a template to get ideas, so you can put together a really good catchy blurb. And because I love to see that, and in the query letter. And then if you kind of just don't do an early draft, make sure you've done edits on it, and that also other people who are writers have seen it and commented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely good to get some feedback on your work before you put it out, because how do you feel about people resubmitting something to you? You've only been in this for a few years now, so I imagine it hasn't happened that often. But
no, if it's a different book, then yeah, but not really, unless I've requested a revise and resubmit myself. So there have been cases where I've liked a book, but there's certain elements that I thought, this is my editorial vision, and I list the things that I see working for the book, and if the writer agrees, then they can have a revise and resubmit. But I don't really want writers to submit the same thing again. As I say, we can't do the individual feedback, so it's only if we've done a full manuscript request. If people have got a different book, then they can, submit a different book. That's fine. But yeah, my revise and resubmits are very much if I've read the full thing, and then I get back and say to the writer, this is your choice, but this is my editorial vision.
Yeah. I mean, even more sort of reason to make sure you get feedback on that first draft, because you can only make that first impression once.
Yeah. It's one of those where it's like, if it looks like it's going to be a lot of work, and the person would probably have got that feedback from beta readers, then that was probably going to stop me, because it'll make me think, oh, you know, they should have really gone and got that feedback, because it would have been consistent. Yeah.
No, I think that's really good advice all around for anyone thinking about querying soon. And that brings us on to the final question, which is, as always, Claire, if you were stranded on a desert island with a single book, which book would it be?
Well, do you know, this took me a while, because there was so many that I would love, but who started my love of the romance genre is Marion Keyes. And it was in the 90s that Rachel's Holiday came out. And I remember thinking, wow, you know, we're going into real depth here with addiction, and it's set in a rehab clinic. And I was just like blown away by, you know, the sort of bracketed under like women's fiction, but with the romance elements. And then when, again, Rachel's come out this year, I would take again Rachel with me, because it feels like I've got Rachel's Holiday and the update on what happened to Rachel and the Walsh family, who I've loved for years. So I would take again Rachel by Marion Keyes.
That's brilliant. I love that. Something that's been with you for a long time.
Yeah, it's mad. You know, just think that it's like nearly, you know, 30 years it'd be coming up to. And, and those books that I used to take off, my mum had so many books, and I'd just take the books down off the bookshelf, and there was so much variety of genre, and she was Irish, and I always thought Marion Keyes taught me that you can write in your accent and you can write where you're from, and I loved that as well.
That's great. No, I love that. That's a really, really wonderful choice. Well, thank you so much, Claire, for coming on the podcast and telling us all about your writing and your career as an agent, and congratulations and good luck with the RNA's Agent of the Year award.
Thank you, and we really love to see submissions from people when we open again in January, so just keep an eye on our website and social media. Yes, and to keep up with those social medias, on Twitter, you can follow the agency at Liverpool Lit, or on Instagram, it's at Liverpool_literary_agency. To make sure you don't miss an episode of this podcast, follow us on Twitter at Right and Wrong UK, or on Instagram and TikTok at Right and Wrong Podcast. Thanks again to Claire, and thanks to everyone listening. We'll catch you in the next episode.
Fargo, the new virtual assistant from Wells Fargo, makes banking faster and easier. Like this.
Fargo, what's my checking account routing number?
And this.
Fargo, turn off my debit card.
And this.
Fargo, what did I spend on groceries last month?
And that's just the beginning. Do you Fargo? You can in the Wells Fargo mobile app. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/getfargo.
Terms and conditions apply. Your mobile carrier's availability and message and data rates may apply. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.